Hey everyone, just your average Jen coming at you from my bedroom. Yay. Today we are going to listen to someone other than me. This was Jess from Recovery Diaries. She was interviewing the Milwaukee County Drug Court judges, and she gave me permission to put that on my podcast. So let me call it up and we will listen together. Okay, where are we? I was so excited because it felt like summer today. It was like around 80 degrees. And now it's near the end of the day and I think I'm already over summer. All right, where are we? We are here. Let's play. Here we go.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? How does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12-step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing Alcoholics Anonymous because it is the granddaddy of all other 12-step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I'm not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12-step recovery guides people down a path to self-actualization. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world. Hey there, folks. Today, something a little bit different. I stole, or rather asked permission from Jess from Recovery Diaries to toss the interview from her drug court judges onto this podcast just so that we can share it a little bit better. Just wanted to talk about drug court and the benefits from drug court, to not think of it as a punishment, but think of it as an opportunity. So listen in, and then if you feel like tuning into Jess's YouTube channel, that is Recovery Diaries, and the link is in the show notes. Have a great day.
All right, so I wanted to just thank both of you to come on today on Recovery Diaries. It means really so much to me. I did not think that this was going to happen, so it's very much an honor to have you both here. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about Milwaukee County Drug Treatment Court, what it was for me, and what it means for Judge Davis and Judge Stark. So we're just going to get right into it. Can you two ladies tell me who you are and what you do and why you came on here today?
Sure. My name is Cynthia Davis. I'm a circuit court judge for Milwaukee County. I've been a judge for about 7 years now. For about 3.5 years, I presided over the Milwaukee County Drug Treatment Court. And so that's how I came to know Jessica. And I had an excellent experience as the judge presiding over the drug treatment court. It's been a pleasure getting to know the participants and being able to stay connected with them. So it's an honor to be here on the show.
And I'm Judge Carolina Stark. I've been serving as a Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge for almost 11 years. And just the way our assignments work in Milwaukee, Judge Davis passed the baton to me last August. And so I am now the presiding judge for our treatment courts, including our drug treatment court. And I think we met just briefly for the first time a couple of weeks ago at a graduation ceremony for one of our other participants. And so, yes, it's a pleasure just to talk to you today and to talk to your audience about treatment court.
Thank you so much again. I really, you ladies just don't understand. You just don't understand. So thank you so much. Judge Davis said, I asked her to be here today because she was my drug court judge. She seen me at my worst and now sees me here. So again, it's my honor. And I also wanted her to be here so we can see what the difference is from now to back then, as far as Judge Stark being the new drug court judge and when Judge Davis was the drug court judge. So what is Milwaukee County Drug Treatment Court and what is it designed to do for a participant?
So some of these questions were shared with us in advance, and the thing that came to mind when I read that question was emphasizing that we used an evidence-based model to really improve public safety by addressing in drug treatment court. We're looking merely right at substance use disorder, but also a number of our participants also have needs related to mental health. And so the idea is if we use this body of research that really teaches us about how to help people change behavior, that we can have a healthier and safer individual, a healthier family, right? A healthier and safer community by addressing those substance use and sometimes also mental health issues. But I really wanted on that question just to focus on that we do use an evidence-based model, and it's not just like our gut we go by. Actually, the evidence has shown us that sometimes our gut is just really wrong in terms of how to respond to things or how to support people in change and in recovery.
And I would say just a key piece procedurally is that drug treatment court is an alternative to the traditional criminal justice system. So instead of a person who's been charged with a crime simply pleading guilty or taking it to trial and then be sentenced, the person has the opportunity to enter into this program and avoid passively incarceration. And if they successfully meet their treatment goals, which include maintaining sobriety, but a whole lot more, if they meet those goals at the end of it, the carrot is that oftentimes the charge is either dismissed or reduced, and they've avoided having to serve any time in jail.
I'm glad you said opportunity because a lot of participants don't see it that way. I seen it as an opportunity to get my life in order. I heard when I first started this program that it was the toughest program, that I shouldn't even sign up for it. I shouldn't do this. You're not going to pass it. I was sick coming into drug court. I was withdrawing so bad. My lawyer wasn't even trying to take that case for me. He said, I'm going to take it against my better judgment because he knew me. He brought me into drug court. I was telling you whatever I wanted to tell you. I didn't care. I thought I was getting out of jail that day. So I said, yep, I want to sign up for drug court. No, little did I know. I sat 30 days until I got into treatment. But a lot of participants, they don't see it as an opportunity. They see it more as a punishment.
I would say in my experience, there's certainly a fair number of participants who enter the program not because they see it as an opportunity to turn their life around. They see it as an opportunity to avoid going to jail right away or going to prison. But Judge Stark, what she mentioned about evidence-based practices is so important because your gut would say, as a judge, I'm not going to accept a person if their motivation is in the wrong place. My gut says, if you just want this because you want to avoid jail but nothing else, then I don't want you in my program. But the evidence says it's okay. You don't have to have a person who's 100% motivated to do the program for the right reasons. You can accept them as long as they're willing to sign that agreement. Then you have, as the judge and the program, you then have that opportunity to slowly, baby steps, work with the person.
And I would add to that, when we use this evidence-based model and what Judge Davis just said, right, that if we were looking at whether to admit someone to treatment court or not, we would say, if they're not ready to change, if they're not ready to do this for the right reasons, I'm not sure what those right reasons are. We have a lot to learn, and we can be guided by research that talks to us about change. And I think many participants, when they start, are in this very early pre-contemplative stage, right? And some who are watching might have learned about the stages or the phases of change, and that's okay. Like Judge Davis said, because we can start with people, right, meeting them where they're at, and hopefully with time, right, moving from that pre-contemplative to, okay, there is something that I want to change. How do I change it? and then providing them the supports and the resources for that change. In terms of that word opportunity, I think it is important to highlight that no one is forced to participate in drug treatment court. It's still within the context, right, of a criminal legal proceeding, and a person has all of their constitutional rights, and they can choose, right, if they're charged with a crime, whether to exercise their right to a trial, whether to negotiate maybe a guilty plea where then they're sentenced without treatment court, or choose to participate. The reasons why they start to choose it may change over time, right, but that in terms of an opportunity, it is a voluntary program. It's not an option that we can mandate people to do.
Okay. How does one qualify for drug treatment court?
Do you remember any of the things you had to do at the beginning?
I remember.
Yeah. What were some of those things? Do you remember?
I remember.
Or if you don't, I don't want to.
I remember. I had a drug charge. I was using drugs, and if I would have been out of jail, I would have continued to still use drugs. And I believe through some of the things I've been researching, those are some of the requirements for drug treatment. You have to show that you're, using drugs or get arrested for drugs, and show that you're. That's what I read through my research.
And so far, for our admissions decisions, who is going to participate in treatment court, starting with someone has to want to do it, right? But we also used an evidence-based model to assess whether or not someone has a moderate to severe substance use disorder. So that's a qualification. There are assessments, I don't know if you remember doing them or not, for risk level. So do they assess at a high risk or a high need level? And then we also look at each individual's circumstances. Where do they reside? Do we have the resources that will be necessary to support everyone? We might talk about a little bit in admissions where someone is in those stages of change, but that's not determinative as to whether or not they're admitted to the program. But looking for and using those, we call them assessment tools, to see if somebody does have a moderate to severe substance use disorder. Do they have high risk and high needs? And then sometimes also looking at if there are other legal barriers to their participating. So if they have charges pending, if someone has charges pending in a different county, we usually want to see those resolved so that we know, are they still going to be available once those charges resolve to participate. Those are my main thoughts, that we still use that evidence-based approach to admissions, looking for that higher level substance use disorder, and then just analyzing each individual's needs at that time to see if we have the resources to meet them.
Right, and while the needle is changing a little bit, there are certain offenses that are just disqualifying. We're not going to have someone who's been charged with a sexual assault or homicide. There's some analysis as to what the charge is.
So like violent crimes?
Right, but there are some, I'd say, violent crimes that could be admitted into the program. Yes.
And I would also note that Wisconsin law, at least my interpretation of it, I don't know if Judge Davis has a different interpretation, whether it's in our statutes or now in our Constitution, that the court has to give at least consideration. It's not like the determinant factor, but consideration if a crime involves a victim. The victim's input as well, we're required by law to consider it.
Okay. Now, you ladies are judges. You're not addiction counselors, correct?
Correct.
With that being said, what makes you ladies qualified to be a drug court judge?
How did we get here, and
Right.
why are we good picks for being here?
Yep. Let me hear it, because I would love to know.
Just as a primer, we're elected. All of the judges are elected. So we're trial court or circuit court judges. And how it works, at least in Milwaukee County, the chief judge usually selects a judge who has expressed interest in this assignment for the assignment. When I was looking at this question in advance, some of the things that came to mind would be that I think it would be really important for a judge in this role to be committed to following the evidence-based model and to learning about it. To that extent, we do have the opportunity to do training through a lot of different organizations, like the National Association for Drug Treatment Court, the Wisconsin Association for Treatment Court Professionals, there's the National Drug Court Institute, the National Center for State Courts. A lot of programming is provided to judges and the whole treatment court team. So I think that's important that a judge be committed to learning about that and doing those trainings. Generally, care and concern for individuals and for community and thinking about this as a health issue. And then also being willing to be like the leader of the team within the court context, because there is an administrative role that I don't think I appreciated. You told me a little bit about it. I don't know if you helped back at all, Cindy, but there's also like a lot of being the leader and a lot of administrative things that have to be done. So I think someone in this role needs to be interested in learning about it and then in doing that as well.
And one thing that I learned early on as the treatment court judge is that this type of program is a different type of jurisprudence. It's called therapeutic jurisprudence. And so you have, as the judge, the opportunity to do a lot of good and to try to affect a lot of change. But you also have the ability, if you're not following the evidence-based practices, to do a lot of harm. And so you're exactly right. We are not formally trained as addiction counselors. And so the judge coming into this role needs to be humble and have that humility to understand you're not the expert in addiction, but that's why you have other people on your team, and it's a collaborative process so that you can rely on the specialized expertise. But then, as Judge Stark said, you have to have a judge who is very willing to learn, because there is a lot of training that we both have undergone to become skilled and proficient in treatment court. But on top of just learning the evidence, you have to have a judge who has empathy. And I don't know if you necessarily learn that in a class. It takes a special kind of judge, and any team member has to have that empathy to be able to relate to the participants.
Yeah, because I do have a whole college degree to be a drug counselor, and I feel that I didn't pursue that because I do have the compassion and the empathy. But when I used to sit in drug court and watch the people, I don't know what goes through your head when they're sitting there telling you, I didn't smoke weed, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Because I'd be the type I never wanted to pursue that because I'd probably lose my job. But it does take a special kind of soul. Because I'm just sitting here watching Judge Davis listen to these people just blow smoke up her, and I'm just like, yo, I just wanted to scream like, yo, you're dirty because you use, like, come on now. But yes, you're right. It takes a special kind of someone to have that compassion and empathy towards people.
But hopefully, too, when that was happening to me, part of being a good judge is finding that balance between that compassion and that empathy, but also calling people out, right, when they aren't being completely open and honest, and holding people accountable. So there is that balance.
And I think part of what is helping me develop that skill, it's still a work in progress. You'll hear me say it a lot today. It's really committing to learning and applying the evidence-based model. So thinking about in that moment, okay, we have this information to the contrary. We have a positive drug test. And there are other signs that sometimes, can indicate use in addition to a positive drug test. But thinking, okay, maybe that person right now is still in that pre-contemplative denial phase. All right, so what does the evidence and research tell us about how we most effectively respond to this type of behavior if someone's in a pre-contemplative or still denial phase? And so thinking about that, it really helps me to think about it within that evidence-based model, and then just always trying to get as much information as possible to then decide what the best response is. What does the evidence tell us the most appropriate response is to meet our goal of helping someone change their behavior and establish and maintain their recovery or their sobriety?
Yeah, because I totally remember that day. I thought I had it all. I said, I want to move out of Joyce's house. I want to do this on my own. I was like, I can do it. The day that I moved out of Joyce's house, I started smoking crack that same day, started sleeping in my car. And she scared me with a sanction. And that kind trying to turn me around.
And you were right on point after that, if I remember. That's all it took.
That's all it took. Now, let me ask you this, Judge Davis and Judge Stark, okay? Sanctions. All right. I was scared out of my mind when I came up 30. I did not know anything about the program. All I heard was that it was hard and no one really gets through it. I wasn't coming back. I did not want to come back to court, okay? My lawyer, he was like, Jesse, just come back and be honest. I said, no, she's not. No, I'm not. My whole team was on my side. I was freaked out, you guys, okay? I have an RSC, recovery support coordinator. I have a case manager. I have my judge right here. Okay, this freaked me out. I remember asking other participants, I said, y'all, am I gonna go to jail, man? I came up 30. They're like, was this your first time? I said, yeah. They're like, no, you're fine. You're not in the box. If you were going to jail, you'd be in the box, behind the glass. I came to court scared out of my mind. So when I came up there, she asked me if I used. I wanted to say no, but you can't lie, dude. I said, yes, I used. You know what this judge did? She praised me for being honest. I thought she was going to scream at me and scold me and yell at me. She praised me for being honest. I was in so much shock. But then, like I said, I had a bad month. I moved out of sober living. I did that, came up 30, whatever. So she said, Miss Schultes, I'm not playing. Next time I'm giving you a sanction. That scared the crap out of me, guys.
So let's talk about the honesty piece. And I will admit that my perspective evolved as a treatment court judge, because in the beginning, I was very strict. I wanted people to be honest. And if they weren't honest with me, then I thought that behavior should be sanctioned, jail sanctioned up front. And then I had a little bit more learning involved, and some of my team members helped me understand too that, well, honesty is what we call, more of a proximal goal, something that even in the early stages of recovery that people can be working at. It's still something that people early on in their recovery aren't used to doing, because as a survival mechanism, people have learned to lie, and that's how people survive. And I didn't appreciate that fully. So I still expected honesty. And when people exhibited honesty, I thought that was extremely praiseworthy, because that's something that helps that person then move along in recovery. They can be honest first with themselves and then honest with the rest of the team. So that's why I praised you. And going back to the evidence, you don't, as a judge, sanction someone just for using. Years ago, maybe that was the practice. Now we know if the person used, and if they come to you and they're honest and they want to move forward, you're not going to sanction that. You're going to praise them for coming forward and being honest. But what happened with you, as I recall after that, was you weren't necessarily getting back on track, right?
No, I was going down.
So then in my mind, it was, okay, I praise you for your honesty, but then, so I'm showing you that empathy and that compassion, but I also have a job to hold you accountable. And I saw you going off path. And sanctions are the last resort, but they're used to stop behavior. And so I didn't want to sanction you up front. I wanted to warn you about it and see if that worked. And I do remember that. I remember that hearing where I threatened you that if you don't stop this behavior and you don't get back on track, you are going to see jail. And you were golden from there on out. But that also shows that responses have to be individualized, because that worked for you, right? Just the mere threat of jail. But that doesn't work for everybody. And some people don't respond. And so maybe a jail sanction is appropriate, but it worked in your case.
Now, do you think a weekend sanction is enough for some people? How do you know when somebody is taking advantage of you? Like how you said, you praised me, right? But then you see me going downhill. You're like, But there's other participants too that take more advantage than I did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So maybe the reason you haven't seen someone get a long sanction is because Judge Davis was following the evidence-based model. And there is years of research that guide us in responses. Sometimes they're incentives, right? Whether that's the praise that Judge Davey gave you for that moment of honesty, whether it's earning points for being compliant right the week and leading up to a fishbowl gift card draw, whether it's a sanction, whether it's what we call a therapeutic adjustment. Okay, do we need to change the therapy, the treatment to give someone, right, make sure they have what they need. The evidence and sanctions shows us that long sanctions, like doing a sanction of a week or a month, that actually it doesn't work. That it doesn't provide that motive or whatever it is, it doesn't pan out to help change, and you can actually do harm. But that being said, so if you didn't see, like 30-day sanctions, 2-month sanctions, some of the things I was thinking about is just listening to you and Judge Davis discuss, your experience together. It's really important, and the evidence, I think, bears this out for the judges to develop a relationship with the participants, one where the participants start to trust and build that rapport. And I think a number of participants, maybe not everyone, but a number of participants have had experiences with the criminal justice system in that more traditional non-therapeutic model, where if they were, say, on pretrial monitoring and not in drug treatment court and they had a positive test, a judge might say, well, I'm changing your bail or you're going into custody. And so I think a number of participants come in with this hesitation and this fear, to be honest, for a number of reasons, including maybe their prior experiences with judges in the justice system. So yeah, developing a rapport with the participants and a trust and hopefully a rapport that makes participants think the judge is going to be appropriate. Whether that's a sanction, they're going to hold me accountable, but also if there's a new use that we can talk about it. And as long as someone is still doing the treatment, coming to the appointments, providing usable, samples for the drug testing, a new use alone is usually going to have a different response than if we start to see the slipping, right, on meeting the other requirements and doing the program, if I say it that way.
Okay. There were 644 drug-related overdoses. A lot of those people that had those overdoses, 644 is kind of a lot of people. Some of them being participants. What do you judges think the underlying issue is to those drug issues?
It's a loaded question. I think it's obviously different for everyone, but in my experience as a treatment court judge, what I saw is that a lot of the root causes of addiction go back to trauma, to childhood trauma. What I found was that participants, and this is universal, this is not just people with drug addictions, is that as humans, we have to become more comfortable with discomfort. We have to be comfortable with the tough emotions. I think sometimes as a society, we are taught that you shouldn't have tough emotions, or if you do, you need to figure out how to make them go away immediately, whether that's with medication or something else. But what I think is the root cause is not being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that can stem back to childhood or not. But that's the issue, was trying to help participants be okay with the good stuff of life, but also with the bad stuff, because you can't avoid that in life.
And I think to kind of follow up on that, in preparation for this discussion, I looked back at, so we have a partnership with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and a specific professor in research there, Dr. Sheeran, Sheran. Part of the evidence-based model for treatment courts involves keeping data, keeping statistics, and having evaluations done so that you can have some measure of, are we doing well? Are we accomplishing our goals? Are we being effective? Where do we need to change? Where do we need to improve? And the report that she did for us last November of 2022, I pulled it out, and it's not just Judge Davis's gut. The data actually shows what some of these underlying issues are. Some of the underlying issues that I think data bear out are that participants and just individuals are using really dangerous substances, right? Heroin, opiate, for the people who were admitted to drug treatment court in Milwaukee County in 2021, 54.8% reported using opiates for heroin. So we know, right, that really dangerous drugs are being used. We know that even more and more dangerous substances are being mixed in with and distributed into the community. It sounds like almost every day I feel like I hear in the news like there's this new substance that's even more dangerous, right? Whether it's fentanyl or all these other things. But the research also showed us that a number of our treatment court participants are also reporting mental health issues or have known mental health diagnoses and also have experienced significant trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma. And so just within our own participants, if we look at the data, these are a number of the issues and the data bears out those trauma and also either accompanying or mental health issues that may be related to that, and then really dangerous substances that are distributed.
It's terrible. What is the success rate of Milwaukee County Drug Treatment Court?
I've got numbers for that.
Let's hear them.
From the same report that Dr. Sharon did for us last November. So this information is for the 31 participants that were admitted into the Milwaukee Adult Drug Treatment Court in 2021. And this is information as of October 24th of 2022. That particular group that we call a cohort had a graduation rate of 53.8%. Now, as of October 24th of 2022, 7 of those 31 had graduated, 6 had been revoked for different violations, but 18 were still active in the drug court. So not everyone had made it through. We still might have some of those other 18. But then looking kind of historically, the graduation rate for the 2020 group that was admitted was lower, 38.7. I would also note that is the year that we had COVID, right, hit us in about end of February of March of 2020. So people that were admitted that year, a lot was happening, right? The year before that, those were admitted in 2019, had a graduation of 61.7%. So just over those last 3 years, we saw a lot of variance. But I think another way to look at success, if we want to call it that, we also look at recidivism rates. So 12 months after they end their participation in treatment court, either through graduation or if they're revoked, there were 272 participants looked at from 2016 to 2021. After 12 months, 8.5% had a new charge issued against them, 5.5% had a new conviction, and 3.7 had a new term of incarceration as a sentence, which actually compared to the rates of recidivism with charges, convictions, or incarceration to traditional courts, these are much lower than rates that you would see in traditional court. But that gives us just some number context in terms of some of the things that we look at to help indicate what our success is in terms of graduates or participants.
Well, those graduation rates might sound very low, but my understanding is that the national average of graduation rates for treatment courts is usually hovering around 60% or 55 to 60%. So when you hear that number, it just seems really low, but that is around the average in the nation.
But guys, we can change those statistics because I did. You can do it. I swear to God, if you just put in what you get out what you put in, man. I promise you. And this is so awesome. What would you ladies say the biggest challenge would be in your line of work?
One of the greatest benefits of being a treatment court judge was the opportunity to be really involved in the process and develop a relationship with the participants. Because in the traditional process as the judge, let's say in a criminal court, especially if the person's represented by an attorney, I'm not going to have much interaction, if at all, with the defendant. Maybe at sentencing, I'm engaging a little bit, but that's about it. So as a treatment court judge, It's this great opportunity to really get to know the participants in your program, feel like you're part of their journey through recovery. And so it's a really satisfying experience. But on the flip side of that is at the end of the day, you're still a judge, you're still bound to certain ethical guidelines that require you to be fair and impartial. There is a tendency that I found in myself that with some participants, I mean, with a lot of them, almost all of them, you become very attached and you want to see them thrive. There's a line, though, that you as the judge can't cross. And for example, there was one participant that I had who was early on in recovery, and she was being required, she had to go to inpatient, and she didn't want to do it. As a team, we were able to get on Zoom with her when she was at the crossroads. She needed to determine if she was going to stay or if she was leaving. And in my head, I just wanted to drive my car over to the facility and sit with her. But that would have been inappropriate. So the greatest challenge is finding that balance between being involved but still abiding by your ethical duties.
And I would share with Judge Davis, so I haven't served in this assignment as long as Judge Davis did. I've been here, since August, so several months. But yes, one of the most rewarding thing is getting to know people and getting to have the opportunity to be part of their change. And yes, the judge does the judge job, and then we've got this whole team, and everyone, right, contributes their expertise, right? The treatment provider is the addiction counselor, we've got all these people working together to support. I never want to lose sight of the fact that our participants are the one doing the hard work, but it is a blessing in terms of opportunity to walk with someone and participate. People don't have to choose treatment court. They can choose something else, or our veterans court. They can choose something else, that they're choosing to do this, even if their reason for it changes over time. That is the most meaningful part, and to see the progress, whether it's ultimately a graduation, whether it's someone being reunified with their children because now that they are in recovery, they can safely care for their children, whether that's meeting other personal goals or just celebrating you stayed in residential 4 days and you got 4 days of sobriety, right? One of the many challenges, I guess, where I am right now, 7 or 8 months into this assignment, probably one of the most challenging things for me has been, and I have to continue to check myself like daily, sometimes hourly, case by case, that I am using the evidence-based model for the therapeutic jurisprudence and not defaulting to the traditional training and experience that we had. I mean, I did not have any exposure to a treatment court like in med law school education, which was many years ago.
I want to say when.
99 to 2002. So I started in a different century in law school. But it wasn't something that I was previously exposed to in that formal education or in internships or brief exposure in my first several years as a judge, getting to know you, Judge Ashley, Judge Brostrom, who had presided and started to pique my interest in wanting to serve in this assignment. That is, I think, a challenge for me, and I would imagine a challenge for many judges that come for their first time into a treatment court assignment, is just making sure that I learn the evidence-based model, and that I'm being true to it, and not just using these gut reactions, the frustrations, right? The moments sometimes, if I'm being frank, of disappointment, not a shame disappointment, but just, just being true to the evidence-based model, learning it and applying it, and just continuing to challenge myself, to check myself, to make sure that that's what's guiding the decisions.
If you ladies have advice for somebody who's starting drug court or who might be struggling through drug court, what would you tell them right now?
You can do it. You can do it. We see so many people do it, and it looks different for everyone. So, if you're sitting in court watching a hearing, you're like, well, they both had a positive test. This one has this response. This person had a different response. Just encouraging someone who's struggling to remember it's really to be individualized for each person's circumstances and experience. But if someone's struggling, you can do it. Talk to your team, talk to your supports, whether that's your RSC, your case manager, there's someone in your life, someone in that recovery community. Just reach out, talk, let us know as your treatment court team what you're struggling with so that we can do our best to support you. But you can do it, and recovery is possible. It's a process, right? It's a process that you keep working on, and just to keep thinking of the process and the progress. I recently had a graduate share in their application for graduation, and I've been trying to pick like a quote from everyone's application. His was simple but meaningful. Its quote was basically working on progress, not perfection, right? Yep. And we've heard that, I think, in other contexts, but just focusing on that process, that progress. There are going to be harder days, right? We talked about that's just going to happen, and learning how to cope with those days in a sober, healthy way, reaching out, because you can do it.
Along those same lines, taking one step at a time, being okay with feeling uncomfortable and knowing that discomfort is part of the process of change. And reaching out if you feel you need help or assistance in any way, because all of us on the team are there because we do care and we want to see you thrive.
I just wanted to say thank you both again so much for being here with me today and getting on here. I did not think this was going to happen. I created this channel at the end of January, not knowing where it was going to take me. Since January, I've went through 3 deaths already, whether it be them due to overdosing or them consistently using drugs to cause the underlying health issues that caused them to pass away. So again, when I say I'm truly grateful and honored, Judge Davis and Judge Stark, I honestly mean that from the bottom of my heart. I asked the universe for this. I asked them to get me out of my struggle, and things are really happening for me now. And I can never, ever thank you enough, Judge Davis, for giving me the opportunity to become the better version of myself and what I was meant to become. You helped save my life. And Judge Stark, I did not think that she was going to ask you to come on here, and just meant a lot for me. Drug treatment court, you guys, is not a punishment. Whatever state you live in, it don't matter. I was at my lowest point in my life when I started drug treatment court. My face was smashed in. I'm sitting here telling this woman what she wanted to hear. This program saved my life. Just remember, we can change those statistics, because I did. Take advantage of the help that's at your fingertips. These people are here to help us. And I just want to thank you so much again. These are our lives, our stories, and our recoveries. Thank you so much for tuning in.
In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making, or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like and share it. Comments also help other struggling people find it. I am now listener supported, and if you would like to contribute, please feel free. There is no obligation. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875@gmail.com. There is also a link you can click if you'd like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show.
Okay, there you have it. Milwaukee County Drug Court judges. I don't know much about that system because I wasn't on that side of addiction or alcoholism or anything like that. So that's why I learned from other people. All right, take care. Next time we're going to hear from Ty. He talks about what life is like now that he's disabled.